Kevin and his brother grew up in the same house. Same parents. Same neighborhood. Same public schools. Same Saturday morning arguments over the television remote. When their father lost his manufacturing job in 2003, they both watched their mother stretch every dollar with a precision that only genuine scarcity teaches. They both absorbed the same lesson from that period: work hard, earn well, and money problems go away. They are both in their late 30s now. Kevin's brother, Daniel, earns $67,000 a year working as a high school science teacher. He owns a small house he bought 8 years ago with a modest down payment. He drives a 2018 pickup truck he paid off 2 years early. He takes his family on one vacation every summer, always within driving distance, always planned 4 months in advance. He has $112,000 in his retirement account, a 3-month emergency fund that he adds to automatically, and a relationship with money that can best be described as quiet confidence. He doesn't think about money every day. He thinks about it on the first Sunday of every month, for about an hour, and then he closes the spreadsheet and goes back to his life. Kevin earns $91,000. He has been earning above $80,000 for 6 years. He has a newer car, a larger apartment in a better part of the city, a wardrobe that reflects the professional he's become, and a social life that matches his income bracket. He also has $14,000 in credit card debt spread across 3 cards, a retirement account with $23,000 in it that he hasn't contributed to in 8 months, and a checking account that approaches zero within 5 days of every payday. He is not a spender in the dramatic, reckless sense. He doesn't buy watches or gamble or make obviously foolish decisions. He just spends. Consistently, quietly, and always just slightly more than he earns. Every month, without exception, the money is gone before the next paycheck arrives. He has said, more times than he can count, some version of the same sentence. I just need to earn a little more and I'll finally get ahead. He has been earning a little more for 6 consecutive years. He has not gotten ahead. Daniel has never said that sentence. Not once. Pause. Music fades in softly. This isn't about what you earn. It's about the gap between what you earn and the way you've learned to think about money, and the specific, invisible patterns that keep that gap from ever closing no matter how many times the paycheck goes up. Because Kevin is not a cautionary tale about laziness or irresponsibility. He is a cautionary tale about something far more common and far more difficult to see from the inside. He is a person who genuinely believes that his financial struggle is an income problem. And that belief, that single, deeply held, completely understandable belief, is the reason the struggle continues. I'm going to show you the real rules of why people who earn enough still feel financially trapped, the specific patterns, beliefs, blind spots, and structural failures that keep intelligent, hardworking, genuinely well-intentioned people from ever building the financial life they keep telling themselves is one raise away. These are not abstract principles. They are the exact mechanisms that are operating in Kevin's life, probably in ways he still can't fully see, and possibly in yours. Understanding them clearly is the first step toward changing the outcome. And changing the outcome starts not with your income, but with what you believe about your income. Transition to core content. Rule 1. The belief that your financial struggle is an income problem is the most expensive belief you will ever hold. This is where everything begins, and it has to be said plainly because almost nobody says it plainly. If you are earning enough to cover your genuine needs and you are still struggling financially, the problem is not the number on your paycheck. It is the system, or the absence of a system, governing what happens to that number after it arrives. Increasing the number without changing the system produces the same outcome at a higher income level. The math changes. The struggle doesn't. Here's how this plays out in real life. Kevin received a raise from $74,000 to $85,000 3 years ago. That's approximately $700 more per month after taxes. He was genuinely excited. He told himself he was going to use part of it to pay down his credit card debt. Within 4 months, his monthly expenses had adjusted upward in ways he barely noticed. A streaming service here, a slightly nicer grocery budget there, a gym he felt his new income level could support. The $700 was absorbed before it ever had a chance to change anything. His debt didn't go down. His savings didn't go up. The raise disappeared into the system that was already consuming everything, and he was left slightly confused about where it had gone. The psychological insight is that most people relate to their financial struggle as something being done to them rather than something emerging from a set of beliefs and behaviors that are, with effort, changeable. Blaming insufficient income is not weakness. It's a completely natural response to a genuinely difficult situation. But it is also a response that transfers agency away from you and onto a variable you may not be able to control, while the variables you can control continue operating without intervention. Rule 2. You are almost certainly spending money in categories you have never once consciously examined, and those categories are likely consuming more than you realize. Most people who feel financially stretched have a general sense of where their money goes. Housing, food, transportation, the usual things. What they almost never have is an actual, accurate, category-by-category accounting of what those categories cost in a real month. The number that consistently surprises people when they do this exercise for the first time is the gap between what they estimate they spend and what they actually spend. Research on this consistently finds that people underestimate their non-essential spending by 30 to 40%. Not because they're lying to themselves deliberately. Because spending, when it happens in small, frequent, forgettable transactions, doesn't register the same way a single large purchase does. Here's the real-world version. Kevin, if asked, would estimate he spends about $400 a month on food outside the home, restaurants, coffee, delivery, lunches. If he exported his last 3 months of transactions and categorized every single one, the actual number is closer to $680. The $280 gap isn't made up of extravagant dinners. It's made up of $14 lunches he didn't pack, $6 coffees he bought out of habit, $34 delivery orders on nights he didn't feel like cooking, multiplied across 90 days. None of those individual purchases felt significant. Together, they represent $3,360 per year being spent in a category he thought cost him $4,800, but actually costs him $8,160. But here's what most people miss. The point of this exercise is not to feel guilty about the $14 lunch. The point is accuracy. You cannot make meaningful financial decisions about money you don't accurately account for. The decisions Kevin needs to make are not dramatic or painful. They are simply unavailable to him while his mental model of his spending is 35% lower than the reality. Rule 3. Your fixed expenses are quietly making your financial decisions for you, and most people have never audited them. There are 2 kinds of expenses. The ones you decide to make and the ones that have already been decided. And the ratio between those 2 categories, more than almost anything else, determines how much financial agency you actually have in a given month. Fixed expenses, rent, mortgage, car payments, insurance premiums, subscription services, debt minimums, phone bills, gym memberships, are commitments that extract money from your account automatically, without requiring a decision, without invoking a moment of reflection, without giving you the chance to weigh them against alternatives. They just happen. Every month. With or without your engagement. When your fixed expenses consume a high percentage of your take-home income, the discretionary space you have left is small. And small discretionary space means that any irregular expense, a car repair, a medical bill, a travel obligation, a home maintenance item, has no cushion to land in. It either goes on credit or it destabilizes the month entirely. This is the structural source of paycheck-to-paycheck living at higher incomes. Not reckless spending. Just a fixed expense load that leaves no room for variance. The audit most people have never done is straightforward. List every fixed monthly commitment, including the ones that are easy to forget, the software subscription, the annual membership divided by 12, the insurance that drafts quarterly. Add them up. Divide by your monthly take-home income. If that number exceeds 60%, you have a structural problem that a spending diet won't solve. You need to eliminate or reduce fixed commitments, which is harder than reducing variable spending, but far more impactful because the savings are permanent and automatic. It gets worse. Fixed expenses have a ratchet quality. They go up easily and come down with enormous friction. Every new commitment you add is a commitment that will be there next month and the month after, with or without your continued enthusiasm for it. Rule 4. Debt is not just a financial cost. It is a monthly tax on every future dollar you earn, and most people dramatically underestimate what it's actually costing them. Kevin's $14,000 in credit card debt, spread across 3 cards at an average interest rate of somewhere between 19 and 22%, is costing him approximately $2,600 to $3,100 per year in interest alone. That is money he earns, pays taxes on, hands to a credit card company, and receives nothing in return for. It is pure extraction. And it will continue extracting at that rate for as long as the balance exists, regardless of how carefully he manages everything else. But here's the calculation most people never make. That $2,600 to $3,100 per year, if redirected to an investment account rather than a credit card company, at a 7% average annual return, would be worth approximately $125,000 to $150,000 over 20 years. Kevin is not just paying $14,000 in debt. He is paying $14,000 in debt plus surrendering $130,000 in future wealth to hold it. The psychological trap of revolving debt is that the minimum payment feels like financial responsibility. You're meeting your obligation. You're not in default. The account is in good standing. But minimum payments on high-interest debt are engineered to keep balances stable for years while extracting maximum interest. A $14,000 balance at 20% interest, paid at the minimum payment rate, takes approximately 30 years to eliminate and costs over $20,000 in interest over that period. The card company will not explain this to you. The statement will not make this vivid. The architecture of the product is specifically designed to obscure the total cost. The hidden consequence is not just financial. It is psychological. Carrying debt you can't seem to eliminate creates a persistent background anxiety that affects decision-making, risk tolerance, and the ability to think clearly about the future. It makes people simultaneously more impulsive with small purchases because they're already in debt, so what's the difference, and more avoidant of financial planning because looking at the numbers is uncomfortable. Both responses make the situation worse. Rule 5. The paycheck-to-paycheck cycle at higher incomes is not a spending problem. It is a sequencing problem. And fixing the sequence changes everything without requiring you to spend less. This rule sounds almost too simple. Pay attention to it anyway, because it is the one that produces the fastest behavioral change for the most people. Most people handle their money in the following sequence. Income arrives. Bills get paid. Life gets lived. Whatever is left over, if anything, gets saved or invested. This sequence virtually guarantees that saving and investing will be last in line, which means they will receive whatever the month's spending pattern happens to leave behind. In most months, that is very little or nothing. The sequence that produces different outcomes is: income arrives, savings and investments move automatically before anything else, bills get paid from what remains, life gets lived within what's left. Same income, same expenses. Radically different outcomes because the priority order has been reversed. Here's the real-world version. If Kevin's take-home pay is $5,400 per month and his fixed expenses are $3,200, he has $2,200 in discretionary space. Under the current sequence, he spends through most of that $2,200 across the month and saves whatever fragment is left, which is usually nothing. Under the reverse sequence, $600 moves to investment and emergency savings on the first of the month before he has processed the money as available. His discretionary budget for the month is now $1,600. He adjusts. Not dramatically. Slightly. He makes $40 worth of different daily decisions. And $600 per month invested consistently for 20 years at 7% returns is worth approximately $310,000. The sequence generated the wealth. Not the sacrifice. Not the discipline. Not the willpower. Just the order of operations. But here's what most people miss. The reason this isn't more widely practiced is that it requires you to trust the system over your feelings. On the day the $600 moves automatically, It might feel tight. There might be a voice that says, I need that this month. The system is designed to exist specifically for that moment, to make the decision in advance, when you are calm and rational, so the emotional version of you in a difficult week doesn't override it. Rule 6. Every financial struggle has a specific origin story, and most people have never identified theirs. This rule is different from the others because it's about understanding rather than action. But understanding the origin is what makes sustained action possible. The relationship you have with money today was almost entirely formed before you were 20 years old. The household you grew up in, the financial experiences you witnessed, the messages you received explicitly and implicitly about what money means, who deserves it, how it behaves, what it's for. All of that is encoded in your financial behavior as an adult in ways that are largely automatic and largely invisible. Some people grew up in households where money was always scarce and spending it was the one form of relief available. As adults, they spend when they're stressed because spending was the coping mechanism they inherited. Some people grew up in households where money was never discussed, where financial secrecy was the norm, and as adults they avoid looking at their finances because looking at them produces an anxiety they can't quite name. Some people grew up in households where wealth was associated with moral corruption, and as adults they self-sabotage when they begin to accumulate it because, somewhere below the level of conscious awareness, having money feels dangerous or wrong. Kevin grew up watching his mother deprive herself of things she needed so her children wouldn't feel the weight of the family's financial stress. He internalized, without ever articulating it, that denying yourself good things is what financially responsible people do. And so he spent his 20s alternating between periods of rigid, joyless restriction and exhausted, guilt-driven spending. He never found a middle way because the middle way wasn't modeled for him. He doesn't know this about himself. He just knows that his relationship with money feels complicated and uncomfortable in ways he can't quite explain. The psychological insight is that you cannot think your way out of a pattern that is operating below the level of thought. Identifying the origin story doesn't automatically resolve the pattern, but it makes it visible. And visible patterns can be interrupted. Invisible ones just run. Rule 7. Most people are making their most important financial decisions in the worst possible emotional states. This is the rule that financial planning literature almost never addresses directly. And it is responsible for an enormous amount of financial damage. Financial decisions made under stress, fatigue, loneliness, boredom, or emotional pain are systematically worse than financial decisions made in calm, rested, reflective states. This is not a character flaw. It is a feature of human neuroscience. The brain regions responsible for long-term planning and impulse control are the same regions most compromised by emotional distress. When you feel bad, your financial decision-making degrades, often without you noticing it has. The timing of most people's worst financial decisions is not random. It correlates with difficult weeks, stressful workdays, fights with partners, lonely evenings, and the low-grade exhaustion of being in a financial situation that never quite improves. The spending that happens in those moments isn't about the thing being purchased. It's about the emotional state being managed. Here's what this costs in practical terms. Kevin's most expensive financial category, when he tracks it honestly, is not his rent or his car or his groceries. It's the cluster of purchases that happen between 7 and 10 in the evening after difficult workdays. Food delivery, online purchases, subscriptions he signs up for and cancels, small items he wanted for no particular reason. In a given month, this category might represent $400 to $600 in spending that produced almost no remembered satisfaction and contributed directly to the cycle he's trying to escape. The intervention isn't deprivation. It's a 24-hour rule for any non-essential purchase above a defined threshold and a specific, non-financial activity designated for high-stress evenings. Not because spending is wrong, but because spending made in emotional dysregulation almost never reflects what you actually want when you're calm. Rule 8. Your income and your wealth are entirely different numbers, and optimizing for income while ignoring wealth is why people feel stuck despite earning well. Income is what arrives each month. Wealth is what remains after a lifetime of months. And the pursuit of income at the expense of wealth building is one of the most consistent patterns I see in people who earn reasonably well and feel persistently behind. The confusion between income and wealth is culturally reinforced. We celebrate salaries. We compare job offers by their annual number. We use income as the shorthand for financial success in almost every social context. But income is a flow. It only matters to your financial future if you capture some of it. The income that passes through without accumulating leaves no trace, not in your net worth, not in your retirement security, not in your freedom to make different choices 5 years from now. Daniel's $67,000 income has produced $112,000 in investable assets. Kevin's $91,000 income has produced $23,000. After 6 years of higher earnings, Kevin has less wealth than his brother built on significantly less income. The income was not the variable. The capture rate, the percentage of income that became permanent, growing wealth, was the variable. I'm not done yet. The wealth gap between them is not primarily $89,000. Because of the compounding that Daniel's $112,000 will do over the next 25 years, while Kevin's $23,000 does very little, the actual lifetime difference between their current positions is likely to exceed $800,000 when both are at retirement age. $800,000 of difference. Built not on salary but on the discipline over years, through a system of capturing a portion of what arrived each month before the month consumed it. Rule 9. The people and environments around you are setting your financial thermostat, and most people have never consciously chosen their financial reference group. Here is something nobody explains to you when your income rises to a comfortable level. The social group you inhabit, your colleagues, your friends, the neighborhood you live in, the restaurants you frequent, sets an invisible standard for what normal spending looks like. And once that standard is set, spending below it feels like deprivation even when, in absolute terms, it's completely comfortable. This is the financial thermostat. The ambient temperature of financial behavior set by your environment. And your spending will naturally drift toward that temperature without any conscious decision to do so. It happens through 1,000 small social signals. What people suggest when the group chooses a restaurant. What vacations people talk about. What cars sit in the parking lot of your office. What homes your friends are buying. All of it creates a gravitational pull toward a certain level of spending, and resisting that pull takes constant, exhausting effort unless you design your environment deliberately. Kevin lives in a neighborhood where his neighbors drive newer cars than his. His work peers discuss restaurants he can't comfortably afford. His closest friend group takes 2 international trips per year and documents them publicly. None of these people are pressuring Kevin to spend. But the ambient standard they represent sets the reference point against which Kevin measures his own life. And by that reference point, his life always feels slightly inadequate, which produces the quiet, persistent feeling that he needs to spend a bit more to close the gap. The hidden consequence is not just the money spent chasing the reference point. It's the absence of money saved. Every dollar spent maintaining social adequacy in a high-spending environment is a dollar not building toward the financial independence that would make all of that social performance unnecessary. Rule 10. Most people are paying for things they own but not using, and the cost of unused ownership is silent and enormous. This rule is about a specific and underexamined category of spending, the money you've already committed and are continuing to pay, for things that are producing no value in your actual life. The clearest examples are subscriptions. The average household has significantly more active subscription services than it believes it does. Streaming platforms, fitness apps, software tools, meal kit services, news memberships, cloud storage plans, premium tiers of free services, each one made sense at the moment it was activated. Many of them have not been used, or are used so rarely that their cost per use would seem absurd if it were calculated explicitly. But subscriptions are only the most visible version of this problem. It also shows up in gym memberships that haven't been visited in 4 months. In a storage unit full of items that would cost less to replace than they do to store. In a car being financed at $480 per month that sits in a parking garage 5 days a week and could be replaced with something adequate at a $0 monthly payment. In insurance policies with coverage levels chosen years ago that no longer reflect current needs. in professional memberships maintained out of inertia. Here's the exercise that changes this. Once a year, create a complete list of every recurring financial commitment you have. For each one, estimate the number of times you actually used or benefited from it in the past 3 months. Calculate the cost per use. The numbers that emerge from this exercise are consistently startling. And without a clear destination, money decisions get made on feel. And feel is enormously susceptible to the pressures we've already discussed: identity, social comparison, emotional state, habit, and the path of least resistance. Feel is how you end up spending your entire paycheck on things that seemed fine individually and inexplicable collectively. The clarity exercise is not complicated, but it requires honesty. You sit down with your actual numbers, actual income, actual expenses, actual debts, actual assets, and you identify 3 things. First, the monthly gap, the difference between what comes in and what goes out, which tells you the rate at which your financial position is improving or deteriorating. Second, the target, a specific net worth number or a monthly passive income number that represents your definition of genuine financial security. Third, the bridge, the specific monthly actions that connect where you are to where you want to be, and the timeline they imply. Most people have never done this clearly. And in the absence of clarity, struggle feels permanent because there is no map showing that it doesn't have to be. Rule 13. The gap between knowing what to do and actually doing it is not a knowledge problem. It is a structure problem. And most people are trying to solve a structure problem with more knowledge. If you have watched personal finance videos, read articles, listened to podcasts, and had the general conversation with yourself about needing to save more and spend less and invest consistently, you already know what to do. The information is not the missing piece. The missing piece is the structure that makes the right behaviors happen automatically and makes the wrong behaviors require active effort. Because the natural direction of financial behavior, without deliberate structure, is towards spending. Spending is easier. It's socially rewarded. It provides immediate feedback. It requires no planning. The path of least resistance is always towards spending more and saving less, and fighting that path with knowledge and willpower is a strategy that works occasionally and fails consistently. Structure works differently. Structure makes the right behavior the default. The automatic transfer that moves money to savings before you can spend it. The separate account for irregular expenses that makes those expenses feel prepaid rather than destabilizing. The credit cards removed from online shopping accounts. The grocery list written before shopping that eliminates the impulse purchase environment. The calendar event on the first Sunday of each month for a financial review that takes the planning out of planning. Kevin knows he should save more. He has known this for years. The knowledge hasn't changed the behavior because the structure that would make saving automatic doesn't exist in his life. The structure is the intervention. Not more understanding of why saving matters. The actual mechanical system that makes saving happen without requiring him to make a virtuous choice in a moment when the easier choice is available. Rule 14. Comparison is the mechanism by which contentment becomes impossible and spending becomes endless. This rule connects to social comparison, but goes deeper than the surface-level observation that comparing yourself to others makes you want more. It's about understanding the specific mechanism by which comparison operates and why, in the current information environment, it has become more powerful and more financially dangerous than at any previous point in history. For most of human history, your social comparison set was limited to the people you could actually see. Your neighbors, your colleagues, your extended family. The range of lifestyles available for comparison was bounded by geography and social circle. That bounding was financially protective without anyone intending it to be. That protection is gone. The current information environment delivers a curated, filtered, highlight reel version of an essentially unlimited number of lives directly to your attention for several hours per day. Every life on display has been selected and edited for desirability. The travel is real, but the debt that funded it isn't shown. The kitchen renovation is real, but the financial stress it created isn't documented. The clothes, the restaurants, the home, the car, all presented as a coherent lifestyle that represents what life at a certain level looks like. Your brain processes this information as though it reflects reality. It compares your unfiltered experience, your ordinary Tuesday, your cluttered apartment, your aging car, to someone else's filtered highlight. And the comparison produces a chronic, low-grade sense of inadequacy that has no natural resolution point because the comparison set is infinite. There will always be a more impressive version of someone else's life available to make yours feel insufficient. The spending that responds to this inadequacy is not irrational in its origin. It is a completely understandable response to a completely distorted information environment. Understanding the distortion doesn't eliminate its pull, but it does create the cognitive space to ask, before a purchase, is this something I genuinely want, or is this a response to a comparison that was never real to begin with? Rule 15. The financial life you want is available to you on your current income. Most people just haven't designed it yet. This is the rule that matters most and the one most likely to be dismissed as too optimistic. It is not optimistic. It is mathematical. The financial security Kevin is looking for: a growing emergency fund, consistent retirement contributions, shrinking debt, and a monthly experience of money that doesn't produce anxiety, does not require a higher income. It requires a restructured relationship with the income he already has. The numbers support this clearly. If Kevin redirected $800 per month through a combination of eliminated subscriptions, reduced convenience spending, a fixed debt paydown contribution, and an automated savings transfer on payday, his financial position in 24 months would be unrecognizable compared to today. Not comfortable in the fantasy sense. Stable. Growing. Oriented in a direction that compounds over time. That $800 per month is not being saved right now. It is being spent in categories he has never examined, on habits he has never audited, through a system that has never been designed. It exists. It is available. It is already in his paycheck every month. He just hasn't claimed it yet. Transition to closing. Kevin and Daniel grew up in the same house. They learned the same lesson from watching their mother manage scarcity: work hard, earn well, and the money problems go away. Daniel added one more part to that lesson that Kevin never did. Not from any single book or article or conversation. From experience and from paying attention to what his experience was teaching him. He learned that money problems don't go away when the income goes up. They go away when you build a system, a deliberate, simple, automated, honest system that tells your money where to go before the month has a chance to make that decision for you. He learned that the goal wasn't to earn more. The goal was to keep more of what he earned. And keeping more didn't mean deprivation. It meant clarity about what genuinely mattered and the structural discipline to fund it consistently regardless of how any given week felt. He learned that the question was never, how much do I earn? The question was, what am I building, and does what I do with my money each month actually move me toward it? Kevin is going to be fine. He is not irredeemably behind. He has a good income, a functional mind, and the self-awareness to recognize that something isn't working even when he can't fully see what it is. But the path forward for him is not another raise. It is not a different job or a better city or a partner who earns more. It is the uncomfortable, clarifying, genuinely liberating process of looking clearly at what he earns, what he spends, what he owes, what he owns, and designing a system for the first time in his adult life that connects his daily financial behavior to the future he actually wants. The income is already there. It has been there. The work that remains is not about getting more. It is about finally deciding what to do with what you already have. And here is the line I want you to carry out of this video. You have probably been waiting for a number that feels like enough. The number that will finally make the discipline feel possible, the saving feel painless, the future feel real. That number is not coming. Because enough was never about the amount. It was always about the decision to treat what you have as enough to begin. Oh, Utiro, soft music, measured and calm. End card. If something in this video described your situation more precisely than you expected, share it with one person who's been saying they just need a little more. The next video in this series walks through the exact one-page financial system that takes 40 minutes to build and replaces 5 years of intentions. No spreadsheet degree required. Just clarity and a decision to start.